Topic 22, Energy Economics and Policy, Part 4, Australian Energy. So Australia is a very energy-rich country, and in this section we just outline energy production and consumption in Australia and how Australia will develop over the next 30 years, and a bit about Australia's role in world energy production. So this this table is taken from the Department of Industry and Energy, and they produce energy statistics every year. Some of the highlights from this is that there's increased energy productivity through time. 54% of electricity is generated from coal. Internationally, that's quite high compared to the UK, US and Spain from the last part. 42% of energy used in manufacturing is from natural gas. The transport sector was down, but that was because of COVID, so that doesn't really count. And Australia's exporting about 70% of energy production, so that's in contrast to certainly Spain and the UK. Diesel was the largest source of final energy for consumption, so that's going into obviously lorries, trucks and tractors, and there's a growth in natural gas production, and that's a sort of international trend in that many countries are switching from coal into natural gas. It's probably a bit cheaper than coal, but it has a much lower carbon intensity, and there's a 42% increase in solar generation since 2018-19, but from a low base. 24% of electricity is generated from renewables. So these are the highlights from these statistics. There's a note at the bottom here as to what a petajoule is. It's really quite a large amount of energy, so it's enough energy to power around about 45,000 households. So a sort of medium-sized town, probably the size of Bunbury or somewhere like that. Okay. So Australian energy consumption by sector. Transport is this block at the bottom. So that's been growing steadily. Electricity supply is the next, and then manufacturing, mining, residential, commercial and other. And you can see that from 74-75 up to the current period, then there's been a linear increase in energy consumption in Australia. So that's makes it challenging to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Now, what's the main driver of an increase in energy consumption? Well, it's economic growth, so GDP. So in this graph, this dark blue line gives us GDP. The slightly lighter blue line gives us energy consumption, and this is given as an index. So GDP has been going up. Energy consumption has also been going up, but at a slower rate. And then you get the measures of energy productivity and energy intensity. So energy intensity is energy per dollar of GDP. So that's been going. Energy intensity has been going down, and energy productivity. So that's the dollars produced per petajoule, and so that's been going up. So there are signs that Australia is using its energy more efficiently through time, but we've not reached a point of what's called decoupling, where we have GDP increasing, but energy consumption doesn't increase. Or the other form of decoupling is where GDP increases, but greenhouse gas emissions don't increase. So that's the stage that all economies will have to get to if we want to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So it's what's called decoupling. Either you don't have increased energy intensity as GDP increases, or you actually don't get any. You don't get any increase in energy use as GDP increases, and you also don't get any increase in greenhouse gas emissions as GDP increases. The other thing that's been driving this in Australia is also population growth. So GDP growth and population growth drive energy consumption upwards. If we look at this by fuel type, then we can see that Australia, in terms of its energy, is heavily dominated by gas, oil and coal. So these are the fossil fuels, and you've just got this small amount of renewables that's been increasing quite slowly up to 2019, 2020. So all these fossil fuels are going to have to come down to reach greenhouse gas targets. The reduction in coal since about 2000, so coal was going up quite sharply, really filthy fuel in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, and that's been coming down. And what's been happening is that gas has been increasing to provide the generation capacity that's not provided by coal. So coal is being slowly removed from power generation. So just to recap, Australia is an energy-rich country, exports about 70% of the energy it produces, has very large coal reserves, most of which will remain unexploited because of the requirement to reduce greenhouse gases. And just some review questions: what is a petajoule? What is energy intensity? And what is decoupling of energy from growth?